Right now, someone is watching you. They see you at work, punching in and out like clockwork. They see you at the grocery store, standing in line with your cart. They see you walking through your neighborhood, looking exactly like everyone else. To them, you're just another person living an ordinary life, following the same routine day after day. But what they don't see is the quiet revolution happening behind your eyes. What they don't know is that you're building something so powerful, so carefully constructed, that by the time they notice, it'll already be too late for them to catch up. This is the art that Machiavelli himself would have admired, the discipline of appearing harmless while you consolidate real strength, the mastery of looking ordinary while you architect an empire in the shadows. Machiavelli once wrote something that still echoes through the halls of power today. He said that a prince is better feared than loved, but he must never be hated. In our modern world, that translates into something even more potent. You build your fortune in complete silence, without provoking envy, without broadcasting every move you make, without turning your life into a performance for people who will never understand what you're building. You let your results do the whispering for you, years down the line when it actually matters. Every person who has truly risen from nothing to everything has understood this fundamental law. Look at the Medici family in Renaissance Florence. To the outside world, they were just humble bankers, keeping their ledgers neat and their heads down. But behind those ordinary appearances, they were pulling strings that controlled papal elections, commissioned the greatest art the world had ever seen, and financed entire wars. The most dangerous power, the kind that lasts for generations, is the power that no one suspects until it's already transformed the world around them. That's exactly what you need to become. Not the loud entrepreneur shouting about their latest venture on social media, not the flashy success story driving cars they can't afford to impress people they don't even like. You need to become the invisible force, the quiet architect working behind the scenes, the ordinary person that nobody notices until suddenly their influence is everywhere and their empire is unshakable. The first rule of building this kind of wealth is something that goes against everything our modern culture teaches us. You must master the art of the low profile. You have to appear modest, even average, even forgettable. Machiavelli understood that most people judge by what they can see rather than by what actually exists. They confuse symbols for substance every single time, so let them make that mistake. Drive a car that blends into traffic, dress like you earn less than you actually do. Live in genuine comfort, not in a showcase designed to impress strangers at the expense of your financial freedom. When fortune finally smiles on you and things start working in your favor, resist every urge to announce it to the world. Instead of flaunting your progress, reinvest it back into your growing empire. Here's a truth that separates the wealthy from the pretenders. Every single time you announce your progress publicly, you awaken envy in the hearts of people around you, and envy attracts opposition like blood in the water attracts sharks. The modern person has been conditioned to think they gain respect through attention, through followers, through likes and shares and public validation. But anyone who has studied real power knows that attention is actually the enemy of genuine progress. When you get that raise at work, fight against the impulse to immediately upgrade your entire lifestyle. The average person spends new money faster than they can earn it, caught in an endless cycle of consumption that keeps them perpetually trapped. The truly wealthy do something completely different. They redirect that money into assets, into investments, into building blocks of future freedom. Keep your outer life relatively constant while your inner world compounds power at an exponential rate. Power that hides itself grows faster and stronger than power that parades around demanding to be noticed. Every dollar you don't waste on display becomes another soldier in your private army of capital, working for you silently around the clock. When you spend money to impress other people, you lose command over your own financial destiny. When you save strategically and invest with discipline, you become untouchable, insulated from the chaos that destroys most people's financial lives. Machiavelli observed something profound about fortune and opportunity that most people completely miss. He said that fortune is like a woman, and if you wish to master her, you must be bold enough to take decisive action.
In our new world, that action isn't loud or showy, but it is strategic and calculated. The second critical step to building quiet wealth is learning the art of putting your money to work before it decays in your hands. Money that sits idle is like a soldier without a mission. It weakens, it loses purpose, and eventually it dies a slow death. Every day your money sits in a basic checking account, inflation eats away at its purchasing power like rust consuming metal. That's why every dollar sitting stagnant is secretly losing strength while you sleep. The genuinely wealthy understand this at a cellular level, which is why they move their money constantly and strategically. They put it into assets, into ownership stakes, into leverage points, into anything that multiplies and appreciates over time. Back in Renaissance Florence, merchants would send their ships across the dangerous Mediterranean Sea, knowing that half of them might sink to the bottom of the ocean, but also knowing that the survivors would return loaded with fortunes that made the entire risk worthwhile. Today's financial elite operate with the exact same mindset, just with different vehicles. They invest capital before time has a chance to rob it of value. You need to train yourself to move money with clear purpose and intention. The moment money enters your hands, it should already have a predetermined destination locked in your mind. It should flow into assets that appreciate while you're sleeping, working, or living your life. Real estate that generates rental income, index funds that capture market growth, private business ventures that compound returns year after year. These are the modern equivalents of those merchant ships sailing to distant lands. The goal here isn't to hoard cash like a dragon sitting on a pile of gold. The goal is to deploy it intelligently and watch it return multiplied. Poor people cling desperately to their cash and watch helplessly as it fades in value. Powerful people circulate money through productive channels and watch it come back stronger. But here's the secret that separates good investors from great ones. It's not about speed, it's about precision. Machiavelli warned that those who build their foundation on the shifting moods of the masses are building on mud. In financial terms, that means you should never follow the crowd into whatever investment is trending on social media this week. Don't chase hype or speculative noise just because everyone else seems to be making money. The masses gamble with their financial futures based on emotion and FOMO. The true strategist invests based on fundamental principles and long-term thinking. If you can master this one principle, that money is meant to move from decay to growth, from liability to leverage, from consumption to production, you'll start to see the hidden architecture of wealth that's been invisible to you until now. But there's an even deeper layer to this principle that most people completely ignore, even those who consider themselves financially educated. It's not just about where you put your money, it's equally about where you put your attention, your mental energy, your focus. Every single moment you waste scrolling through other people's highlight reels, comparing yourself to influencers and their rented lifestyles, is energy lost that could have been directed towards creating your own empire. The modern person wastes hours consuming content about other people's fortunes while their own potential sits completely unclaimed, gathering dust in the corner of their mind. That's precisely why Machiavelli insisted on periods of isolation for the sake of clarity and strategic thinking. He understood that those who wish to command others must first know how to command themselves. In our current era, that self-command begins with 3 types of silence: financial silence, social silence, and mental silence. The moment you broadcast your ambitions publicly, you invite resistance from people who don't want to see you rise. The moment you share your next strategic move, you surrender the leverage that comes from being unpredictable. Your power literally decays in direct proportion to your exposure. So ask yourself this honest question: are you building quietly in the background, or are you performing loudly for an audience that doesn't actually care about your success? Are you letting the world think you're average while your empire grows systematically behind closed doors? Or are you still explaining your goals and dreams to people who will never understand them because they're operating from a completely different mindset?
Here's the dividing line between the dreamer and the Machiavellian strategist. The dreamer seeks validation from others to feel like they're making progress, while the strategist seeks only victory regardless of who notices. This raises a critical question that separates people who simply accumulate money from those who actually multiply wealth across generations. How do you make your money move for you silently and automatically while you remain invisible to the jealous eyes around you? The answer lies in understanding that wealth, like influence, must constantly be in motion. Cash sitting in your account is like an army sleeping in the field. It consumes resources, it costs you opportunity, and it weakens with every passing day. The elite understand that money must be deployed with precision into vehicles that generate returns while their hands are free to build the next thing. Look at how today's billionaires actually operate when you study their moves carefully. When Warren Buffett receives cash from dividends, he redeploys it into new investments before it has time to collect dust. When Elon Musk sells stock in one company, he immediately pours those proceeds into funding new ventures and ambitious projects. They all practice the same Machiavellian rhythm without even realizing they're following principles laid out centuries ago. No dead money sitting idle. No dead time wasted. Wealth must flow through channels that gain strength the longer they remain in motion. Now, there's another crucial principle that Machiavelli hinted at throughout his work: the concealment of action. He wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. Therefore, one must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves away. This is the essential art of balance, displaying strength in your execution while maintaining absolute stealth in your exposure. That's where digital silence becomes your most powerful strategic advantage in the modern age. Unless your livelihood directly depends on public attention, unless your business model specifically feeds on social media algorithms and public engagement, you should disappear from the digital battlefield where everyone is performing their lives for strangers. Real power attracts opposition, and visibility attracts weakness and vulnerability. Every photo you post showing your progress, every boast about your latest win, every public display of your growing success is an open door inviting envy, imitation, or outright theft from people watching in the shadows. The truly powerful cultivate an aura of mystique around themselves. They don't reveal their exact holdings, their strategic partners, or their future plans to the public. They operate like shadows moving behind the curtain, influencing outcomes without being seen as the source. In the Renaissance, successful political figures would hide their true intentions behind carefully constructed layers of rumor, misdirection, and strategic silence. In our current age, the financial elite do exactly the same thing, just with different tools. Non-disclosure agreements, private accounts held in corporate names, complex legal structures that create veils of privacy. They understand something fundamental that most people miss. When others can't measure your wealth accurately, they can't manipulate you. They can't use social pressure to extract resources from you, and they can't target you with schemes and scams. That's precisely why you must treat your privacy as a form of currency that you spend very carefully. Delete the psychological need for external validation. Resist the temptation to prove your progress to people who didn't believe in you when you started. The person who moves quietly through life wins twice. Once when they achieve their goals, and again when no one sees it coming until it's already too late to stop them. Now, let's talk about your next level of power, which is long-term investing done with discipline and patience. Machiavelli observed that wise people do immediately what foolish people do eventually after wasting years. The fool sits around waiting for the perfect opportunity with perfect conditions. The wise commit to a solid plan and let it compound silently over decades. In the world of finance, that plan is patience executed through automation. Forget about speculation and day trading and trying to time the market perfectly. That's just gambling dressed up in financial terminology, trying to win fortune's favor with luck instead of strategy. The true strategist builds wealth through consistent systems that work whether they're paying attention or not. Index funds that track market growth, ETFs that provide diversification, recurring automatic investments that happen every month without requiring willpower. When you automate your financial strategy, you're creating a financial army that marches forward without needing constant commands from you. Your money works in complete silence every single month, every single year, systematically buying small pieces of the empire while you sleep, work, or enjoy your life. Think about it like the Venetian merchants who sent dozens of ships to trade across dangerous seas. Some of those ships would sink in storms, some would return broken and barely profitable. But the few that made it home safely would bring back treasures that covered every loss 10 times over. That's diversification, a lesson older than any modern market chart or financial theory. Modern millionaires and billionaires follow this exact same discipline in their investment approach. They don't chase trendy investments or gamble based on emotion and fear. They play the long game with steady, unshaken, almost boring consistency that compounds into massive wealth over time. The average person scrolls social media looking for excitement and quick wins. The elite engineer boredom into their investment strategy and convert that boredom into reliable profit. Patience, as Machiavelli would say, is the armor that protects the ruler from his own impulses and from external chaos. Your role isn't to react emotionally to every market movement. Your role is to command your financial destiny by making one good decision and then letting time obey that decision through compound growth. And yet, as your automated systems grow and start building real wealth, a new challenge emerges that you must address: the inherent vulnerability of depending on a single income stream. A single source of money, no matter how large or stable it seems right now, can be taxed heavily, frozen by circumstances beyond your control, or disrupted by economic forces you didn't see coming. A ruler who depends on one fortress is vulnerable to siege. A ruler who controls many fortresses scattered across the territory cannot be overthrown easily. That's why Machiavelli specifically advised princes to build multiple fortifications, each operating independently of the others, so that the failure of one doesn't collapse the entire kingdom. The exact same principle applies to your personal finances in the modern world. You must create parallel streams of income that operate quietly, independently, and resiliently, regardless of what happens to your main job. Every additional source of cash flow you create is another fortress standing guard over your sovereignty and financial independence. So ask yourself this question honestly: if tomorrow morning your main income disappeared completely, how many financial fortresses would still be standing? How many backup income streams are you quietly building while the rest of the world sleeps and distracts itself with entertainment? The truly wealthy don't just build one stream of income and hope it lasts forever. They build intricate webs of control with multiple income sources, not single threads of hope that can snap under pressure. A person who relies only on their job, no matter how well-paying, is like a prince who owns only one castle. They might seem powerful and secure today, but they're actually vulnerable the moment the first siege arrives in the form of layoffs, industry disruption, or economic recession. Every paycheck you earn from your main job should be planting seeds for additional income streams that will grow over time. Side businesses that leverage your skills, digital assets that generate passive income, consulting work that pays premium rates, real estate investments that produce monthly cash flow. Each one becomes a tributary feeding your private river of wealth. The modern elite understand this principle perfectly when you study how they actually operate. Jeff Bezos didn't stop with selling books online. He built cloud computing services, logistics networks, and media empires. The Medici family didn't stop with banking operations. They systematically bought land, commissioned art that appreciated, and built influence in every corner of society.
The true Machiavellian multiplies their frontiers quietly and strategically until their reach becomes invisible to observers, but absolutely dominant in reality. You can do exactly the same thing starting from wherever you are right now. Start with something small and manageable, an online skill you can monetize, a local service people need, a rental property that generates monthly income. But build it with the mindset that this is the foundation of your future empire, not just a side hobby. Every stream of income should function independently, so that if one source dries up temporarily, another continues flowing and sustaining you. Over time, your wealth transforms from being dependent on a paycheck that can disappear into being a self-sustaining system that works regardless of external circumstances. Remember this clearly: one income source is survival mode. Multiple independent income streams represent true sovereignty. And this principle leads us directly to the next critical rule. You must protect your growing empire through proper legal structure and continued silence about your success. In The Prince, Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler must build fortresses to guard his accumulated power, yet also know when to hide those fortresses from envious eyes. In our modern age, that fortress takes the form of legal protection, an LLC that shields your personal assets, a trust that protects wealth across generations, corporate structures that create veils between your name and your holdings. The genuinely rich don't keep everything registered under their personal name where it's visible and vulnerable. They build labyrinths of ownership so legally complex that even their enemies can't find the entrance to attack them. When you buy real estate, you should form a separate LLC for each property to isolate liability. When you start a business, use proper legal frameworks and corporate structures from day one, not because you're expecting to be attacked, but because you're preparing for that possibility before it arrives. The Machiavellian mind assumes that betrayal and opposition are rules of nature, not exceptions, and therefore fortifies defenses before the storm hits. The Rockefellers, the Waltons, even modern tech billionaires all use the same fundamental tactics: privacy and legal structure as armor protecting their wealth from lawsuits, taxes, and jealous competitors. They operate quietly in public, but behind them stand armies of lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors, serving as the invisible generals of their empire. And perhaps most importantly in your daily life, you must learn to talk less about what you're building. Every time you speak openly about your plans, strategies, and future moves, you invite interference from people who will either try to copy you or sabotage you. Machiavelli warned specifically, never show the wound until you're in position to strike decisively. The silent builder protects his strategic advantage by letting others believe he has none. In your personal relationships, resist the powerful urge to brag, to explain your strategy, to prove to doubters that you're actually making progress. Let your work breathe and speak for itself over time. The person who talks too soon about their plans trades away leverage and strategic advantage in exchange for a few moments of applause from people who won't remember the conversation next week. Now here's a rule that might seem unrelated at first, but actually reveals the highest form of power that few people understand. Give generously, but give in the shadows where no one sees. Charity performed for public applause isn't really virtue or generosity, it's just marketing disguised as kindness. Machiavelli said that people love at their own advantage, not at yours, so when you choose to help others, do it without public announcement or fanfare. Anonymous giving protects both your humility and your strategic leverage. It reminds fortune that you command abundance without worshiping it or becoming enslaved to it. The greatest rulers throughout history knew this secret. The Medici funded hospitals and cathedrals anonymously, building goodwill without triggering envy. Even modern billionaires use private foundations not primarily for fame, but for strategic influence that operates below the radar. When you give quietly without seeking recognition, you build unseen goodwill and invisible alliances that last far longer than any photo posted on social media. You strengthen your moral authority without triggering the envy and resentment that public displays of wealth always create. And that principle brings us to the next frontier of building quiet wealth: your environment and the people you allow into your inner circle. Even the sharpest mind dulls and weakens when surrounded by fools who don't understand the game you're playing. If your social circle thrives on noise, attention-seeking, and public validation, your commitment to silence and strategy will slowly suffocate under that pressure. The next step requires perhaps the most Machiavellian decision of all: choosing allies who will protect your secrecy rather than expose it for their own gain.
Every empire in history has fallen not from external invasion, but from internal leaks and betrayals. One loose tongue, one careless friend who can't keep a secret, one envious peer who resents your success, and years of careful work can vanish overnight in a cascade of consequences. That's precisely why Machiavelli urged princes to keep only people of discretion and proven silence in their inner circle. You need allies and friends who genuinely share your code. No boasting of wins, no oversharing of strategies, no seeking validation from strangers online. You need people who are actively building their own empires instead of gossiping about others. The average person just wants company and entertainment from their social circle. The strategic person seeks alignment with people moving in the same direction. Reduce your circles systematically until only those who guard your ambition and respect your privacy remain close. Quiet people move deeper into life, think more clearly about complex problems, and stay wealthier over the long term because they're not bleeding energy and attention into performative relationships. In this silent journey toward lasting wealth, not everyone deserves or earns a seat beside your throne. And yet, there's one final transformation that must happen, one last evolution that separates those who build temporary wealth from those who create lasting legacies. You must master the psychology of continuous adaptation. This is the art of thinking like a ruler who evolves with every changing season, who learns faster than the world around them can change. That's where Machiavelli's final lesson reveals itself most clearly. The discipline that turns temporary fortune into permanent legacy. Now that your empire stands protected by legal structure, privacy, and systematic discipline, the final step is achieving true mastery, not just of wealth accumulation, but of yourself. Machiavelli believed deeply that fortune changes constantly with the times, and those who adapt their strategies prosper, while rigid thinkers fall. The final rule of getting rich without being noticed is to keep evolving quietly without announcing each transformation. Real power isn't a possession you acquire once and keep forever. It's an ongoing process of growth and adaptation. The moment you stop learning and evolving, your empire begins its inevitable decay. Surround yourself with people who are genuinely curious about the world, not just loud about their opinions. Choose allies and mentors who measure success by continuous growth, not by temporary validation. Your inner circle should be a direct reflection of your direction in life. If your friends chase clout and attention, you'll drown in distraction and comparison. If they chase knowledge and mastery, you'll rise alongside them through mutual elevation.
Machiavelli called this the law of proximity. The quality of your advisors and close associates determines the ultimate fate of your reign. The greatest rulers in history, from Lorenzo de' Medici navigating Renaissance politics to modern CEOs steering billion-dollar companies, knew that their real power came from superior information and wisdom, not from public image or popularity. So commit to studying constantly and reading what others overlook. Learn the fundamental laws of money that don't change. Study the psychology of power and influence. Understand the cycles of markets and economies. Warren Buffett famously reads for hours every single day, not because he's old-fashioned or has nothing better to do, but because he knows that quiet knowledge compounds faster than capital itself. Every new insight you gain becomes another layer of defense, another invisible wall protecting your fortune from those who would take it. Avoid the modern temptation to chase every new trend or jump frantically from one scheme to another looking for quick results. The impatient person builds impressive-looking castles on foundations of sand that wash away with the first storm. The patient person builds fortresses on solid rock that stand for generations. The market rewards consistency far more than it rewards cleverness or trying to outsmart everyone else. Machiavelli wrote that it is not titles that honor people, but people who honor titles through their character and actions. The same fundamental truth applies to wealth and money. Money itself doesn't make you powerful or significant. How you wield it, how you think about it, how you let it shape or not shape your character, that's what actually matters.
You are the foundation of your wealth, not the number in your bank account. And this brings us back full circle to the final paradox that completes the picture. The most genuinely powerful people often look completely ordinary to casual observers. The true strategist doesn't need or want public recognition because they understand it creates more problems than benefits. When you walk through a grocery store or stand in line at the bank, no one around you should sense what you actually control behind the scenes. The real strength lies in being functionally invisible to threats while maintaining complete independence. Your wealth can't be accurately measured by outsiders. Your peace of mind can't be bought or manipulated. Your sovereignty can't be threatened by circumstances that destroy ordinary people. To the world, you remain the person who goes to work, comes home, and lives simply without flash or drama. But behind those closed doors, you're quietly orchestrating your own dynasty. You invest systematically, learn voraciously, build strategically, and protect what you've created while everyone else performs for attention on social media. The loud masses crave validation from strangers. The silent few build legacies that outlast their own lifetimes. When you choose to give back, you do it in secret. When you win, you stay emotionally calm and grounded. When you grow, you remain humble and approachable. Because the more you actually rise in wealth and power, the less the world should know of the full extent of it. Machiavelli understood this better than almost anyone in history. He warned that people are naturally envious of those who rise above them, yet they also despise and mock those who appear weak or humble. The solution to this paradox is to play both roles simultaneously. Appear genuinely humble in your lifestyle and interactions while living far above envy's reach in your actual financial position. This is the art of hidden power applied to modern wealth building. It's not just about accumulating money in bank accounts, it's about mastering perception and controlling what others believe about you. The less they can see of your true position, the more they'll make incorrect assumptions. The less you feel compelled to explain, the more mysterious your control becomes in their minds. Silence becomes your clearest signal. Patience becomes your strongest armor. The modern world screams constantly for attention, but fortune herself whispers only to those who are quiet enough to hear her guidance. So when you inevitably find yourself tempted to show off your latest win, to post about your success, to prove the doubters wrong publicly, remember this. True kings don't announce their conquests to peasants seeking validation. They let history do the announcing for them decades later. The greatest victories happen in private rooms where no one is watching. The business deal closed quietly without fanfare. The disciplined habit built in solitude over years. The strategic discipline that no one applauds because no one even knows it's happening. These are the invisible rituals and practices that separate the genuinely wealthy from the restless masses forever chasing the next dopamine hit. And as your empire grows year after year, remember that fortune favors the bold and disciplined, but she remains loyal to the discreet. Protect your time, your mental peace, and your anonymity as fiercely as you protect your money. These are the true currencies of power that can't be counterfeited. The person who understands this at a deep level becomes truly untouchable in life. Their wealth flows in multiple streams, their influence spreads through invisible networks, and their name remains largely unspoken in public while wielding enormous private power. Because the less the masses know about your real position, the more secure your reign becomes over time. So as you step forward from this moment into your future, remember the final truth that ties everything together. The curb appeal of wealth, the luxury cars and designer clothes and mansions, that's just bait for the insecure. The real treasure is the quiet sovereignty that exists behind closed doors where no one can see. Build that empire systematically, guard it obsessively, and let absolutely no one see how deep it actually runs. That's how you win the game while everyone else is still figuring out the rules.